Hello everyone, my name is Mew. Welcome back. I will be narrating the second part of The Ghost of You, a text-based horror adventure about a murder that happened at a concert hall. In our last episode, we established the background of the protagonist, Libretto, and she has met two new people at the concert, and has also introduced us players to her ex-girlfriend and her current best friend, who could be her new girlfriend. Now I am just going to tweak the volume settings a little bit. Please do tell me if the volume is too loud or you can't hear my voice over the music or anything. And I will be adjusting the volume as I see your comments. Also, during the stream, I will not be replying to your comments by voice, but rather I will be replying to your chats through text chats, because for obvious reasons, I do not want to ruin the listening experience for those viewers who prefer to have these recordings, these narrations on while they do other things and concentrate on whatever else they're doing. So let's load the game and get in. But perhaps the most unusual of all you notice is the placement of speakers around the room. There are several around the stage's upper rungs and 3 that hang off the upper circle ceiling. Something about them to you feels off. So, what do you think of the place then, Libretto? Eliza asks with a smile and pulls you out of your thoughts. What will you say? It's absolutely beautiful, thank you. Of course, darling, you are my best friend after all. What with Robin traveling, I couldn't very well ask her now, could I? You raise a suspicious eyebrow as Eliza laughs nervously, rubbing the back of her neck with a grim look across her face. What will you say? Isn't it all over with Robin? All over with Robin? Libretto, come now, you know she's just wandering about Europe looking for the best outlets of business. And hasn't contacted me in almost a year. She trails off with a faraway look in her eyes. You place a hand on her shoulder, and she sighs wearily as she pats your head. All of a sudden, you see it. Amidst the chatter and the warmth. There. Up above the upper circle, right in the middle, and in the glaze of the sound booth's window, a pair of eyes watching, and a pair of eyes that meet with your own. Sinister. Evil. They watch you with a sharp intent. Your breath immediately hitches in fear as you see them, and the silhouette of the figure bearing them in their skull. Libretto? Liza asks curiously. But you are unable to pay attention. Their tall, slender frame, the silhouette of their folded arms, up in the translucent window, just behind the seating of the upper circle. You begin to work out that the room must be a control room, or some kind of room where you can only see the virtually opaque frosted glass, and behind it, a pair of eyes covered with shining glasses atop someone's face. The light reflecting off of their glasses illuminates their glare. You know they are watching you. You feel as though you are a target. A prickle shoots up your spine. You cannot possibly grow to know the other members like this. What will you do? Abandon the group and run up there to see for yourself. Your blood is pumping with adrenaline. There is something deep inside you demanding that you have to go up there right this moment. Because if you do not, something awful is going to happen, either to you, to your friends, or to the entirety of this hall. You have no basis to be feeling this way other than the telling glint of circular glasses from behind the frosted window. And who knew if this was even anything to be concerned about? But after the ominous, creeping sensation you felt walking up the Symphony Hall's gravel path, past the pine trees in the pitch-black woods, and the overshadowing silence of the nighttime, you remember how the idea of something crawling up your back almost made you cry out in fear. As you spin on one heel, resolved in a cold sweat to go up and see what is going on in that room, Eliza grabs your shoulder and pulls you back a little. You pause, turning to her in a blind panic, and she looks at you with surprise. "Libretto!" she exclaims, bewildered. "What's the matter? Are you feeling unwell?" You hesitate for a moment, biting your lip hard enough to almost draw blood, but then you say, "Someone has been following me tonight." Eliza's eyes widen in surprise at your statement, and she sees the determination written on your now pallid face. Your forehead feels a little sticky from the cold sweat after realizing someone was, indeed, watching over you. And the adrenaline of potentially getting into something dangerous courses through your muscles. Wait. Following you? What? You shake your head and explain that you do not know the details, only that you are positive that you were pursued on the way up to the Symphony Hall, to the point you would swear that you heard footsteps coming up quickly behind you. Eliza shakes her head in disbelief, placing her hands on either side of your shoulders, and looks you square in the eyes beneath the lights of the chandelier. "Libretto, nobody is up there in the control room, not a soul. Look for yourself." You turn quickly to look at the frosted glass once more. The figure that you saw before watching over you is not there. You sigh, frustrated, and feeling both humiliated and duped. You look away from both Eliza and the window itself. "Excuse me, ladies." There is a rap on the door from a woman with a clipboard and a sharply dressed tuxedo jacket. Her brown hair tumbles over her shoulders as she pokes her head around the door, looking at the group of musicians as she speaks. Her eyes linger on you, but you don't recognize her. "Half an hour until showtime, everyone. Prepare yourselves as much as possible before the opening. Audience members will begin filtering in 10 minutes before, all right?" Eliza nods and turns back to face you. "Oh, almost showtime. How exciting!" Every member of the symphonic group is awaiting an eager chance to talk to you. After the events that have unfolded this evening, you have many questions. Far too many running through your head to have them all answered so close to showtime. If you do not feel in the mood for chatting, you also have the option to explore the hall. What will you ask everyone? Did you know each other prior to this week? Arietta and Serenade are the first to exchange a wry smile, laughing before they look away from each other a little bashfully. Arietta folds her arms and looks up at you, while Serenade stands with a serene smile, clasping her hands by her stomach. "Yeah, we did, for a long time." Serenade giggles, and you smile at the two of them. Mona stands with the usual gloomy demeanor before you, brushing back a strand of her midnight hair behind her ear. You can tell that she still feels upset from your sudden interaction earlier, and your heart hurts for her. Her eyes look slightly pink at the edges. Libretto and I knew each other before tonight, she states bluntly, despite any assumptions over her appearance. We were together for a long time. Arietta raises her eyebrows and Serenade looks with a surprise at you. Oh, Serenade exclaims. I see. So coming here for Eliza and Mona must have been two birds with one stone, right? Mona looks at Eliza and awaits any kind of apology that you both know isn't going to arrive. Right, Eliza says hurriedly, and you can tell she feels guilty about the whole situation from the way she's slapping your shoulders. See? Isn't it a good thing for the both of you? What will you say? You just don't get how hurtful it was to suddenly see each other again, do you? Eliza's pleasantries don't wash over well with you, and you see right through her attempted beeline to make things right. You shake a hand off her shoulder, irritated by how blatant her charm offensive is, trying to smooth over a mistake she made with no hint of an apology to Mona. You felt terrible as it was. You knew how badly tonight had been going for her, and especially how lonely Mona must have felt these last few months without you. You certainly knew that Eliza had all but dropped Mona from her life the moment you split up, and in that, in itself, was an issue unresolved. Libretto, Eliza replies, aghast to you, and Mona steps in to defend your choice. You really don't get it, do you? Not even a little, Mona began pointedly, unimpressed by Eliza's attempt to cover up her faux pas, and her gloomy expression turns to a scornful glare. It's pointless trying to talk to someone as self-centered as you, Eliza. How could you not tell us, not even tell me at least? I know you love to pretend I don't exist for some reason, but I'm here. I'm right here. I'm not going anywhere, and neither is Libretto. Mona awaits some kind of response, only to scoff when there is none from Eliza. Arietta and Serenade stand awkwardly in the background, and you frown in disappointment at Eliza. I thought so. You watch Eliza's temper flare privately as she chews at the inside of her cheek. Shall we move on? Arietta chips in quietly, and with Eliza and Mona both thoroughly scalded, you agree that it's for the best to do that. What will you ask everyone? How were you informed about playing at the Symphony Hall? How were we informed? Eliza repeats and looks around at the other members as he stands in the small group. Well, that's a good question actually. You see, none of us really know who it was that hired us to play here directly. It sounds as though it's a charity-organized event. She runs a hand through her sandy hair, making a noise of contemplation as she does so. As I know you're too familiar with Libretto, we both know being a freelance musician is not easy. To be honest, I'm shocked you didn't get a letter too. As far as I know, we all happen to just get these letters through our door. Let me see here. Eliza rummages around in her coat pocket, looking for something, and eventually pulls out a rather pathetic, crumpled-up-looking piece of paper in an equally crumpled envelope. She laughs bashfully at the obvious lack of care she took with it. She hands the letter over to you, looking at you expectantly, and watches you unfold the letter to glance over the words below. 12th December 1951. Dear Miss Duran, we are delighted to invite you to perform at the Songbird Symphony Hall's opening night in 2 weeks' time as part of a symphonic group. We have received many private references from individuals that have known you for many years and have been able to verify the skills in which you possess for playing the flute. If you are interested in this position, please take note of the following telephone number and contact us as soon as you are able. This is not junk mail. You have been chosen to perform an original arrangement of Camille Saint-Saëns's piece, Danse Macabre, as well as other pieces which will be afforded to you at a later date. Again, If you are interested in this position, do not delay and contact us today. If we have not heard from you in 3 days' time upon sending of this letter, we shall instead begin searching again for another performer in time for the opening symphony. Best regards, the Classics and Symphonic Alliance. You finish reading the letter and your fingertips scan the words that were written. They were written by hand, scrawled hastily in crude, harsh-looking ink against the paper. Eliza looks very excited upon you looking up from reading the letter. She clasps your hands together between her own. Isn't it wonderful? I could have wept when I received the letter. I remember the second thing I did after calling them was call you. Oh, Libretto, I am so happy I can experience this with you. You smile out of gratitude, and she beams brilliantly in your direction. Mona looks at Eliza in disbelief. You got that kind of a letter too? Serenade chips in and pulls out a piece of paper from her pocket. Me too. I guess we must have all gotten the same, I assume. Arietta rummages around the back pocket and pulls out the remnants of an envelope of one, whilst laughing to herself. Yeah, me too. I guess they must have seen us all around performing. As for these letters, it would appear amidst our rehearsing and practicing of sheet music, none of us really had the thought to ask if we'd gotten the same envelopes through our door. I got that letter too, Mona added, waving a sheet of paper in her hand slowly. It's a little disappointing that we all got such similar ones, but I suppose it goes to show they were all tailored to each other in the most minuscule of ways. Handwritten too. Did any of you actually meet this person who wrote these letters? Arietta asks gruffly, folding her arms as she stands next to Serenade. It's kind of strange, I know. This opening's been happening for a while, but we've still not met the conductor. I suppose it's not really that strange, Serenade interjects, pressing her fingers to her chin in thought. Lots of organized events are run by big-scale executive officers nowadays, or, as my inner skeptic would say, the people who actually profit. What will you ask everyone? How long have you been playing your instruments? We talked about this when we arrived, actually, Mona pointedly replied. I've been playing the clarinet for 8. Arietta and Serenade have both been playing the piano and harpsichord for 10 and 12 years, respectively, Arietta butts in, and Mona nods along. Serenade's also got a beautiful voice. Oh, come now, Serenade blushes as Arietta beams at her and flusters as she continues. Eliza, you've been playing the flute for... Eliza looks a little surprised to be addressed so suddenly and turns to you with a prideful smile, folding her arms and winking. Libretto can answer that one for me, she boasts. She knows. What's the right answer? "13 years. Eliza firmly places her hands on her hips and looks at you in disbelief, trying and failing to suppress the pout pulling at her lips. Libretto! How can you forget when we started playing at the very same time? Eliza's offended facade begins to crack, giving way to a grin. She smiles a bright smile at you and throws an arm around your shoulders jovially. Oh, well, I know you've had a lot on your mind lately. Don't worry about it. Tonight you can clear your head and get lost in the excitement of a live show, eh? Mona stares at the two of you from beneath her long dark bangs with an unmistakable intensity. What will you ask everyone? No thanks. I'd rather explore the rest of the hall before showtime. Despite your fears over the looming figure, you make your choice. As the company of your eccentric peers comes together in chatter and decision on where to put what for the performance looming, you decide to swallow your fright over the room up behind the upper circle and go to explore around the symphony hall. This is the first time you have truly been able to look up around the symphony hall for yourself besides a passing glance, and your breath is taken away further by the sights that you are met with. The first extra that you notice compared to what you saw from your first entry is the gargoyles. There are even gargoyles in this hall, hanging small in the corners of the rooms, looming over edges of golden pillars. Next to them are large, mesmerizingly detailed paintings that look as though the subjects inside could step out onto the carpet at any moment, dripping the oils and colors all over the red of the floor. You shudder at the eeriness of them. Only one of the paintings appears to be covered with a blanket. The paintings that are on display, however, are just as beautiful as they are haunting. What will you do? Remove the blanket covering the painting. You decide to try and remove the blanket covering the painting, despite that you feel slightly bored doing it. As you tug on the material's golden tassels, you find that the top corners are deliberately stuck down to the frame itself. You tilt your own head to the side in trying to see the angles at which they are stuck, and try to also wonder why. Why wouldn't anybody want you to see this painting to the point of depreciating its value with attachments like these? Suddenly, you hear a voice from behind you. "How are you doing, Libretto?" Eliza walks up to you. She looks up at the covered painting at your side and folds her arms as she makes a noise of contemplation to herself. "You're curious too, are you?" she asks and smiles at you. "Shall we take a little peek? We could probably at least see the title if we lift up the bottom ever so slightly." Will you find out the title of the painting? "Yes, I'm curious." You lift up the cloth covering the painting just so, and see the title is My Joyful Love. "My Joyful Love," Eliza repeats. "So this was definitely a painting about a lover. How romantic. I wonder why it's covered. Maybe they had a bad breakup. Can you imagine getting an oil painting done of someone only for them to leave you? Honestly, I can think of better things to spend my money that I don't have on." Eliza glances towards the direction of the stage, making a soft noise of contemplation. I think I'm going to go and get some last-minute practice in libretto. I'll leave you to your own words, own devices," she says, as she brushes past you, giving your shoulder a gentle pat. "Just make sure you come and wish me luck before the show starts, darling." With that, the always chipper Eliza hurries down the hall, rounding the corner and disappearing from view. As your footsteps softly echo with your movements, you slowly walk around the chairs of the hall, gently running your fingertips over the material of the cushions and closing your eyes to inhale deeply the atmosphere around you. For the first time tonight, you feel almost as though you begin to feel some semblance of relaxation. You jump out of your skin, with your heart racing, as you suddenly hear a loud noise from above. Without even looking, you know for sure it's coming from the control room. Somebody's still in there after all. You feel a horrible sense of panic wash over you as you realize just how close you are to the room itself. It will be no difficult task for whoever was up there to rush down the upper circle's aisle, jump over the edge, and do something terrible. What will you do? Attempt to go up to the control room, time to see what's really going on. You steel your nerves and walk at a brisk pace towards the large iron-looking double doors that lead out towards the back end of the Symphony Hall's room. You're brave enough to do this. You know full well that you are. You almost feel silly for allowing something faceless to have been making you panic all this time. Your hands tremble as you reach out towards the handles, thinking twice before you make your move. And as you grip the handles to pull, you find that the doors provide you with the underwhelming revelation that they are locked. Despite your attempt to open the locked doors, the noise behind the door grows louder and louder, a large, unrelenting rumble that frightens you the longer you hold on. You feel the door's handle turn in your palm, and it takes every part of your willpower to restrain a scream coming from your lips. But with a fierce turn of the door's handles once more, in your attempt to dissuade whoever is behind the door, the rumbling stops. You remain frozen to the spot, your hands seemingly glued to the door's handles. There is no more movement. You are out of luck. With a shaky, anxious sigh of disappointment, you retrace your steps and return backstage with everyone once again. Before you realize, time passes in the blink of an eye. There is a bang on the door to symbolize to get ready and for you to start leaving too. You turn your attention to Eliza, who hurries over to you, clasping your hands, and you can feel her trembling with a mixture of delight and excitement. Well, this is it, libretto. This performance could change both of our lives if there was a scout in the audience. Wish me luck. Her expression is one that you have never quite seen on her before, and she is looking to you for words of encouragement for the biggest performance of her life. What will you say? Good luck, Eliza. You'll do fantastic, and I'll be watching every step of the way. Eliza hugs you tightly, touched by your words. She looks more determined than you've ever seen her, clenching her own hands into fists at her sides and nodding. Yes, thank you, my dear. We will do this together, and I will play the very best that I can. Every note that comes from my lips tonight will be for you, you know. What will you say? Everything I do is for you too. I owe you so much. Eliza looks at you with a mixture of disbelief and utter joy, and you feel your heart melting a little. Libretto, she replies shyly, and that pretty expression that you know of her cute face so well comes to the surface immediately. Her bright smile returns, brighter than it's ever been, you think, and she grins as she holds your hand. This really will be the best night of my life. I can't even believe we're stood here. It was a real miracle that I got that letter. You can tell that Eliza is genuine in her happiness of being able to just be at your side. You feel a smile tugging at either side of your lips. I'm beyond happy to have you, darling. Let's make this a night to remember together, for as many good reasons as possible. Eliza's expression becomes rather crestfallen suddenly, and you raise your eyebrows at her in sympathy. Is everything all right? Eliza blinks, unaware that her expression has risen to the muscles in her face, and shakes her head hastily. Oh, everything's fine, darling. Everything's fine, she insists, and you look at her curiously. She wrings her hands together and her gaze falls to the floor. Really? It is... I don't know why I suddenly felt so gloomy. I just felt as though something was going to go wrong, but I have no idea why I feel that way. Just stage fright, I'll bet. Eliza laughs and wears a big smile, though you've known her long enough to know it's one she puts on not to worry you. With Eliza's departure, you hear familiar footsteps coming from another direction and feel a hand gently place itself on your shoulder. Libretto, the source of the footsteps speaks, and you feel butterflies in your stomach whip up like a whirlwind of petals as you turn around. Mona is stood before you now, looking at you rather sheepishly, and the same gloomy demeanor that you know all too well staring you in the face. Your gaze softens as you see how nervous she is standing before you, and also note how quickly she retracted her hand from her shoulder. I just wanted to say to you that I'm glad you're here tonight. You blink incredulously, and Mona turns to leave. You know she isn't doing it for dramatic effect or for the sake that she is upset with you, but more so that she feels how you feel being around her. You can hardly stand to see her in such a way. Will you stop her from leaving and say something? No. You watch as Mona returns to the stage, unwanting to disturb her concentration for the performance about to start in a few moments, and you appreciate from a distance that she came to talk to you. Perhaps you two can reconnect at some point, but tonight might not be the best place to do that. You watch for a moment as Eliza, Arietta, Serenade, and Mona all take their places. The audience members are beginning to file in from the very back of the hall. You double-check the ticket Eliza posted through your door. Your seat is third from the very front row. The show is about to begin. The symphony hall is alive, breathing, living, and whirring with the static of people filtering in. You can hear the joyful chatter of the patrons entering in waves, and you see the top hats and tweed flat caps that were not left in the cloakroom discarded to several young-looking, slightly dowdy cloakroom attendants on hand. You wait in your seat, 58C, as jolly audience members crowd around the seats in your area. The lighting is dark. You can barely make out the text on a discarded flyer on the seat next to you from the lack of illumination, and you keep turning around every now and then from the unsettling paranoia you have felt all night. You still aren't entirely convinced that there isn't someone watching over you, but what more can you do? Your friends would notice with or without illumination whether you are here or not, surely. Your position nearest to the front row is as safe as you could be, and if anything were to happen inside the symphony hall itself, you'd not be the only one to be affected. The whole situation, you attempt to convince yourself, is ridiculous. You shift uncomfortably in your seat, finding it more and more uneasy to keep looking around yourself whilst you wait for the symphony, and more to the fact that the people behind you are beginning to grow concerned with whatever you are interested in, and look around a couple of times themselves. The chatter begins to grow quieter and quieter, and the doors finally close. You feel the buzz in the air that the concert is about to start. And now, a booming voice says from the sounding room, playing for the first time in the Songbird Symphony Hall, it is one of our latest quartets. Unfortunately, our planned conductor could not be here tonight, and instead will be substituted by Iris and Giamatti. You begin to hear a low resonating buzz of people around you. A conductor substitute? How strange. That is relatively unheard of. Oh, there she is. Is she wearing a mask? What on earth is going on here? This just gets weirder and weirder, doesn't it? I never did like these small towns. The voices around you coagulate to make one curious, confused mess. And the dredging, unshakable sense of horror and fear that you have been feeling this entire time tells you something. And that is that you have not even begun to scratch the surface of what truly lies beneath. The conductor walks on stage without a word. She is wearing a plain white masquerade mask over the upper half of her face, accentuating her wide grin. At first, as a woman known as Iris Andromata begins, the performance dazzles you more than you could ever even begin to describe. As the curtains raises, the dazzling reds of the material astounded you, and your eyes light up from the sight of your friends. They play, almost instantaneously, the most melodious of tunes, a beautiful rendition of the classic Danse Macabre, moving in a slow, hypnotizing motion as they sway from side to side. Their own hands move in a perfect clockwork with Serenade's voice and the firm conducting of Iris Andromata leading them. You feel your body, enraptured, completely dissolved of your negative emotions, and you remember just why it was that you were so excited to come tonight. You feel emotional. But as soon as your happiness comes, it leaves. And this time, it leaves for a long time. You feel a hand around your mouth from behind. You don't know who it is, but the overpowering smell of perfume is not giving you any clues. Are you ready for what's to come? The voice mumbles against your ear, hissing with a curved smile, and you are frozen with fear. You don't have time to scream. The conductor has stopped. You realize, I was right all this time. I was being watched. The hand over your mouth is clamped, and inside the palm of this hand is a rag. A sweet, almost odorless smell reaches your nostrils, and you begin to realize that chemicals are being forced into your system. Prepare yourself, libretto. The voice mumbles again, a sardonic chuckle in the words. You begin to realize that this is the voice of a woman. Prepare yourself for everything you're about to endure. She presses harder back against your face, and you feel your throat closing up with a choked gag, clawing at her wrists as fast as you can, but to no avail. You notice, in your panicked, terrified haze, that the people next to you are bleeding from the throat, large, swift gashes in their flesh, and you feel as though you would die of fright alone. Your vision blurs and your body solidifies, stiffening as it is overcome with an indescribable sensation of heaviness and lethargy. Your limbs go slack with delirium, and that is when you realize something awful, that you are passing out and may never wake up. You could swear that, as the room goes even darker than before, that an uncanny, piercing-like sound reaches your ears before you fade, and that your friends stop and leap up in alarm of whatever they just saw before them. You have now passed out. When you awaken, your adventure will begin. Will you survive the madness of the Songbird Symphony Hall? You find yourself lost in a dream. Visions of your mother standing in a field of poppies fill your head, with a brilliant blue moon and a bright sun at her back, burning away through the sky. They are blinding to the eye, yet you continue to stare. A deep, dark chasm ripples its way through the field of flowers with a violent tremble, separating the two of you from ever meeting. Despite the intensity of the rumbling beneath your feet, no sound meets your ears. You extend a desperate hand toward her from the edge of nothingness, pleading with all of your might for her to help you. But she can't hear you in this soundless plain. She simply waves, wearing that serene smile you miss so terribly every day. Arietta and Serenade walk up next to your mother, taking their places at either side of her. They wave at you as well, the calm looks on their faces showing that they are completely oblivious to your desperate pleas. You have trouble recalling, but you think the last thing you saw before you awoke was Liza protectively wrapping her arms around you from behind. There is a sudden sensation of arms wrapping around you. They hold you gently from behind, the motion soothing. You turn your head, and your face is a mere breath away from Eliza's. The way she is looking at you with a pure, undiluted love makes your heart thrum hard in your chest even now. She leans in close, her breath tickling at your ear, and she begins to whisper to you. Don't be afraid, love. If anyone can keep you safe, it's me. Her words of reassurance are the only thing that cut through the deafening silence. The first thing you notice when you wake up is your headache, one unlike any you have ever experienced. It feels as though your brain is being squeezed by a strong vice, unrelenting in its grip and pressing down hard against your sinuses. From this sensation, your vision is obscured, blurry from the pain, blurry from the disorientation you feel all over your body. You feel as though your knees are frozen in place and your back is as stiff as a board. Please, wake up, libretto. Oh, God. Your hands begin to twitch with the stirring of movement as you sit, and you realize that your back is pressed flat up against the firm holdings of a metal chair. There is something against your knees, and you feel a wet, soggy patch against the cotton of your tights, sticking to the skin of your left thigh. Every part of you aches, your muscles screaming as you move, or attempt to. You feel as though you are frozen in place, but with your vision and senses dulled, you cannot be sure why that is. Your eyes sting as they adjust to the bright, unforgiving lights of the rooms, and you begin to make out the silhouette of what is resting against your knee. You let out a pained, groggy groan, and the figure's head shoots upwards. "Libretto!" she cries, her hands moving to cover her mouth. "Oh, thank God!" She weeps against you as her hands move around your shoulders, pulling you into a tight embrace. You feel the scent of her perfume, the familiarity of her hug. You begin to gradually realize that this is Eliza Durant. You begin to see her properly under the lights of the room. Her face is covered in tears, and the expression written across it is just as grim. You go to embrace her in turn, but you find that you cannot. As your eyes begin to adjust properly now, you look down to your wrists and are horribly alarmed at the sensation that you see. Your wrists are bound by fabric straps to the chair, with Eliza looking on at you in horror at the mutual situation you find yourself in. "God, Libretto, I feel so worried," she begins, and kneels down against you once more. "I thought you were never going to wake up again." What will you say? My head. Do you know what happened?" You shake your head as you try to speak to Eliza normally, but are overtaken by the immense ringing pain that you feel squeezing at every nerve ending in your brain. Your eyes are aching with a tinge of sharpness, your neck screaming at you to do something about the headache you feel. Eliza looks at you with a growing concern as you sharply draw breath, and she places her hands on your knees. "Libretto, darling, are you alright?" she asks tentatively. "I'm so sorry that this is happening. I don't remember much myself, to be honest with you. I can't even tell you where we are or what happened. I just don't remember." What will you say? "That's alright, we'll work it out together." Eliza's tired, stressed expression written across her face begins to fade slightly. Just slightly, but fading still. And she smiles at you warmly. Her hands rest against your knees again as she kneels back down once more, stroking over your tights as you remain bound to the chair. "Libretto," she replies gently, nodding alongside your statement. "You're right, we will work this out together. Together, there's nothing we can't do after all." As you shake your head in a vested effort to awaken more, Eliza folds her arms guiltily and wears an expression of an almost mournful contemplation. You want to ask her about what she is thinking, but you both find that there is no time for such thoughts lingering in the air. The crackle of a speaker is one that you know do not want to get used to, but you can already feel that you are going to have to. Your eyes glare sharply at the electrical device before you. Eliza's head whipping around in a panic to see the speaker for herself. You both feel the horror of panic and fear drip into your blood as a distorted, unrecognizable voice begins to talk over the airwaves. "Hey, you're awake? Good." The voice, a feminine, distorted sound, emits from the speaker, and you begin to notice beneath the speaker that there is a small red light. You recognize this from old orchestral productions, televised not nearly often enough for your taste, but you know that this signals on the air. "Who is this person?" Eliza begins to ask, and you feel as though she sounds more frantic with the chuckling of the voice. "What do you want?" "Wow," the voice chuckles to herself. "Honestly, I'm impressed. I've truly outdone myself this time." You frown as Eliza seethes with frustration, both of you baffled. "And just what does that mean?" Liza asks, and you can hear the hesitant fear in her voice. Shut up. I have no interest in you. You both blink in surprise at the callous, cold nature of the voice so suddenly, before you can almost hear it turning to you. My interest is in you. That's right, you on the chair. No, you're a smart girl, aren't you? I'm sure you already recognize that from the way that your hands and feet are bound. I took extra care with you. Don't you feel special? What will you say? Remain silent and allow them to speak. You feel as though silence is your best course of action here. Eliza, however, does not adhere to that standard. Who are you? She yells back at the speaker. Stop playing games with us! Stop? The voice replies incredulously, and you can hear a chuckle. But we've barely just started the test I whipped up for you. It's only been 2 nights since the symphony truly began, and you want me to stop? How ungrateful. I worked so hard to put this together. I worked for so long. The least you could do is begin to appreciate such a thing. What will you say? 2 nights ago? Have I been asleep all this time? Indeed. The voice chuckles with a deep and throaty laugh. It seems the drug we used on you wasn't as strong as it was on the others. Some of them are still asleep after all. They aren't dead, though. You should thank your lucky stars about that. I felt charitable enough to make sure they didn't die. Or maybe you won't be thinking it was such a lucky break sometimes soon after all. What will you say? What do you want to test on me? All in good time, libretto. All in good time. Answers will find you when you cannot find them, don't they? She laughs once more, and your eyes are met with alarm at them, knowing your name. Oh, come now, she assures with a tone of smugness. Of course I know your name. Isn't that a little naive of you to assume I would not know the name of the woman I have built this trial around? Trial? Eliza asks in horror. What do you mean? Didn't I say I had no interest in you? Be quiet. Eliza's eyes falter at the rejection of the distorted voice, and you feel your nails digging into the palm of your hand so hard that they almost draw blood. You struggle to move against your bindings, and you hear her chuckle again, followed by an aggressive noise that has bubbled up in her throat. That fearsome look in your eyes, it makes me want to kill you myself, she states bluntly. But we can't have you dying right away. Not right away, anyway. When I have exacted the experiments I want to exact on you, I'll grant you dream of a quick death, but not a moment before. So, make sure you get through this in one piece, all right? What will you say? Let me and my friends go. The voice's chuckle upgrades to a roaring laughter at your demand, where you can hear that she is particularly amused by your anger. You feel your fists curling up against the cold steel of the chair's handles, and you feel as though all she is doing is feeding your desire to beat her. She finishes, dabbing at the edges of her eyes with her fingers, and leans a little closer to her microphone. Oh, libretto, she begins, and you can hear a slightly obsessive tone melting into her voice. Libretto, libretto, how have you eluded me? Eluded me! Eluded me in such a way and so thoroughly. This is not the first time we've met, you know. I have worked tirelessly to accommodate everybody's needs, or more accurately, their displeasures. But you? She pauses and leans in again. Well, just make sure in this, the most traumatic of circumstances to the average human being, to show me just how you feel. Understand? You feel horrified that this woman somehow knows your name and that it appears to give her such pleasure to keep saying it in such a dangerous tone. You're more alarmed at the answers coming from this mysterious voice, and your eyes scan desperately for something, anything that you could use as a weapon, but to no avail. This room was empty, besides one feature that you hadn't noticed before in your groggy haze, which is that above you, you see 9 tiny holes drilled into the ceiling. Eliza looks alongside you, and you watch her squinting past the fluorescent light. "What is that?" she mumbles under her breath. You feel a cold sweat come over you, thinking about how you cannot move from this position beneath them yet. Besides the lack of things to defend yourself with, the distorted voice coupled with the severity of the situation makes for dark thoughts filling your head. You think of Eliza, of Mona, of your newfound friends in the symphony, and the possibility of escape fading into an abyss. All of those things dying a horrible death. The woman at the other end clearly notices your expression change, and her voice takes on an infuriatingly flippant tone of bemusement. The distorted twang of her voice shifts. "Don't worry, my darling," she replies, and can almost read your mind. "Your friends are safe for now where they are. You don't have to worry. Not yet." You bite your lip, regaining your composure. You almost hear the voice smiling. "Now, I'm about to tell you the part of this venture of mine, and that is particularly important, especially to you. I'm rather glad you woke up first. Saves me having to imprison the others in their respective rooms for the foreseeable future." You think you can hear her folding her hands. "You see, libretto, the answers you seek are all within the basement level of this symphony hall. Yes, you are still here. I know that room makes it seem as though you aren't, but I can assure you, you are. Whether it is quite the same as before, well, I'm sure you can be a sensible judge there, can't you?" What will you say? "How did I get into this room?" The distortion laughs knowingly, and you hear the creak of something in the background as they lean back. "You're carried here for somebody very near and dear to my heart, until they have lived out the usefulness anyway. In the symphony of life, what are we if not pieces of music to be played until we have lived out our purpose?" She snickers, as though it were a trivial affair to approach life so callously. Eliza grits her teeth. "You're little more than a monster!" she shouts. The voice groans. "Did I ask for your opinion? I'm beginning to find you more of a liability than an asset." "An asset? You wish! And as for an opinion, I'm going to give it anyway, you goddamn brute!" Eliza shouts, animated by anger more so than fear. "You're a horrible, wretched, vile person, and you are the worst asset to music that any symphony could ever have to offer." The distorted voice pauses for a second before you hear a low rumble from the speaker. You aren't quite sure whether it is a rumble of anger or of pure amusement, but either way, you feel alarmed. Eliza's eyes falter once more, her eyelids fluttering over her bright eyes, before the voice opts to speak once again. "It's funny that you mentioned the worst piece of music," she replies, and you can picture the smile that she must be wearing on her face as she talks. "Because I have some news for you about that." "What do you mean?" Eliza asks, as impatient as she is anxious. "Get to your point." "Let me be perfectly clear. You'll be played a song at various periods throughout your attempts to get to the basement. But it will not just be a song played for you. In fact, everybody in the vicinity will hear it. And this is no ordinary song. Who knows what kind of horrors it will bring out in the human mind? Doesn't it excite you, this game of audible Russian roulette? Who knows what lurks within the human psyche, even now?" audible Russian roulette? You feel the blood drain from your face. What will you say? What do you mean even now? Did something happen before? The woman pauses for a moment as you hear her breathing rather heavily into the microphone. You see, it would appear during the symphony a fate worse than death befell many of the patrons here, some of which may still be outside suffering in their own ways, and all during the marvel of my wonderfully composed song. Can you believe the rudeness, the sheer audacity of such behavior? To be honest, I wonder if you will be even able to help them. They clearly lack the refined taste to be here. What will you say? What awaits me in the basement? The stranger smiles again in her voice, and you feel more anger than fear this time, knowing that this is where she resides. You wait with bated breath for her answer, and you hear her click something that sounds like a lighter. Everything awaits you here, libretto. All of the answers you seek. All of them. Even ones you probably didn't know you were looking for. What will you say? What kind of a song will it be? What kind of song? She repeats back to you. That is indeed an interesting question. But I'm afraid you'll just have to wait and see, won't you? What will you say? Remain silent. The distorted voice of the woman at the other end of the speaker sighs and leans back in what sounds like a creaky chair for the second time. You could swear that through the speaker you hear cries of some kind, and as mad as it may seem, you just cannot work out whether they are human. They certainly do not sound like any animal that you've ever heard. Now, libretto, I spent so many hours setting this all up, and just for you at that. So, make sure to relish in the delights I have for you, alright? Make sure not to bore me. I'll always be watching, you know. There's not a time in the day that I'm not thinking of you. You feel your teeth gnawing at your lip anxiously. Eliza's fists curl up into balls at her side with a livid rage. Fuck you! She shouts at the speaker, before the distorted voice chuckles to herself. Oh, and one more thing. What is it? If you do not leave that room within 5 minutes, she begins, then I've made it so that a horribly potent, poisonous venom is going to fall on you from the ceiling. Good luck. And for the first time since hearing the distortion over the airwaves, she clicks off. What? Eliza begins, a panicked hysteria in her voice as she clutches at her head. No, no, no! We need to get you out of here right now! What will you say? Do you have anything you can cut me free with? Despite that you feel panicked, you decide to ask Eliza the question that has been on your mind this entire time. Does she have something to cut you free with? Something she may have forgotten about, resting in one of her pockets or otherwise. You figure that she more than likely would have cut you free already, had this been the case. But what if she hadn't? You ask her the question. She blinks twice at you and pats down all over her body. Something to cut you free with. Something. She mumbles to herself, shaking her head. I don't. Eliza's hands stop as she pats the side of her waistcoat down and pulls out a switchblade from her pocket, tiny in stature and not at all noticeable. You think if you hadn't have asked her, she would never have found it. What? She asks to nobody in particular, holding it between her thumb and forefinger with an incredulous expression. You can tell that this knife is not hers, if it even can be called that. The size of it's almost comically small, and you see that she's just as baffled as you are. You think that it looks as though she got it from a novelty advertisement in a comic book. What the? She asks into the air before shaking her hand. Whatever. We can ask the questions later. She flips the switchblade up, pulling out the tiny blade as delicately as she can, and you're both pleasantly surprised to find that it cuts through fabric like a knife in butter. You feel the bite of the pain begin to fade as you regain freedom. At last! Eliza exclaims in pure joy and slides a knife through the last of her bindings against your left arm. You stand up, perhaps a little too fast, and stumble, almost falling back against the seat. Eliza grabs you quickly in a protective embrace, and you place your hands on his shoulders to steady yourself. Careful, darling. Are you all right? You shake your head and press a hand to your forehead. What will you say? God, what a mess we've found ourselves in, huh? You say the first thing that comes into your mind as your binding's free, and Eliza holds you in her arms. What a mess indeed. What a fine mess somebody has made here. You were freed from your bindings with time to spare, and that was certain. But what if you hadn't? Would you be dead now? Or was a voice just bluffing? She did say she wanted you alive after all. But if she could set up something as ominous sounding as a misshapen symphony hall full of who knew what, you didn't really doubt that she was capable of something as devious as killing you on the spot. Eliza tucks a strand of your hair behind your ear, and you blush at realizing how intimately you both stood. She does too. That same moment, and the two of you leap apart. Let's get out of here, Eliza quickly says, and the two of you make your way over to the front door of this mysterious, unforgivingly sterile room. The metal door swings open, much to your relief, and you're brought face to face with the reality of the symphony hall. Where is... Eliza begins in bewilderment. Are we in the lobby again, libretto? You find that you and Eliza are on the upper floor. Eliza, not letting go of your hand, takes a step forward into the unknown. The landing that you are stood on seemingly sturdy, but the lobby beneath you completely blocked up with rubble. You can barely just make out the checkered flooring beneath the dust and bits of fallen rock, and the ceiling above you now is little more than grating, padding, and boards from where the roof must have been. Around the landing that you stand on, you can see 3 entrances at either side of you and one behind. The one behind you says "Sounding Room" in very plain font on the door. You know full well that you saw somebody watching you when you were waiting by the stage, and you have a sneaking suspicion that they were also watching you when you walked up to the hall this evening. The other entrances say layover room to your right, and the other entrance says instrument room and pantry. The only other room is a room that you emerged from, and you don't want to be going back in there anytime soon. Eliza holds your hand as you peer out over the lobby. The stairway downstairs blocked off by bits of falling debris and rubble. You cannot believe that this place is even still standing, as if there was some kind of blast to make the ceiling fall down atop the structure. What the hell happened in this place? Eliza asks, taken aback by the scenery before both of you. What do you think we should do, libretto? Should we begin exploring around? No sense in standing here around here for too long, I suppose. You turn to Eliza's confused expression and watch as she runs a hand through her wavy short hair. You cannot tell whether it is just the trauma of the situation or a newfound perspective, but you are beginning to view Eliza in a different, more attractive light. Which room do you want to enter? Okay, everybody. Thank you for being here again with me today. I hope that this recording has been of help to your time of relaxation. And I might just end the stream here and come back with the beginning of the exploration of the concert hall in my next session of narration of The Ghost of You, a text-based horror adventure game. Thank you all so much. Don't forget to follow, and I'll see you in my next stream. Please do not forget, during the evening of UTC times, I also stream action games on PS4 and PC.